Welcome to the channel CoinWorth Lab, and if you've ever emptied your pockets at the end of a long day and tossed a handful of quarters onto your dresser without a second thought, then what I'm about to tell you might just make your jaw drop to the floor, because hiding right there in that casual pile of pocket change could be a coin worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan. And I'm not exaggerating even a little bit. The 1990 Washington quarter is one of the most jaw-dropping stories. In all of American numismatics, a coin so ordinary-looking that millions of people have spent them on coffee, on parking meters, on vending machines, never once suspecting that certain specimens of this exact coin have sold for as much as $115 million. And yes, you read that correctly, $115 million for a quarter, a single 25-cent piece that could have been sitting in your change jar for years. So before you spend another quarter, without looking at it, you need to hear everything I'm about to tell you, because this story is going to completely change the way you look at pocket change forever. Now let's talk about why the 1990 Washington quarter became such a legendary piece in the numismatic world, because the story starts with the Philadelphia Mint in 1990, a time when the United States Mint was producing quarters at an absolutely staggering rate to meet the demands of a booming economy, and while the vast majority of those coins came out perfectly standard, a very small number of them left the mint with errors and varieties so dramatic, so visually stunning, that collectors around the world began competing fiercely to own them. And when serious competition enters the collecting world, prices climb in ways that seem almost impossible to believe. The Philadelphia Mint in 1990 was operating under intense production pressure, and it's exactly in those high-volume, high-pressure moments that the most extraordinary errors tend to slip through quality control. Dies get rotated, planchets get double-struck, designs get overlaid in ways that create coins unlike anything the mint ever intended to produce, and these are the specimens that collectors spend fortunes chasing. Can you imagine holding a coin in your hand right now that looks almost identical to any other quarter in your pocket, but contains a doubling error so dramatic that under magnification the lettering appears to split into two distinct, perfectly legible layers? That's exactly what some 1990 quarters exhibit, and that doubling, technically called a hub doubling or mechanical doubling depending on the specific variety, is what separates a 25-cent piece from a potentially life-changing discovery. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering has an even more unbelievable story that you're going to want to hear. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because not all double die errors are created equal, and the specific characteristics of the 1990 error varieties are what drove collector demand through the stratosphere. Experts examining these coins under high-powered magnification have documented separation in the lettering of "In God We Trust," in the date itself, and in the design elements of George Washington's portrait. And when you have that kind of dramatic, visually verifiable error on a coin that was produced in enormous quantities yet where only a handful of error specimens survived the mint's quality control process, you create exactly the kind of scarcity that makes the numismatic market absolutely explode with excitement. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have authenticated specimens of the 1990 Washington quarter that represent some of the finest known examples of their specific varieties. And when a coin earns a grade like MS67 or MS68, meaning it's been preserved in essentially perfect, uncirculated condition since the day it left the mint, the value increases exponentially compared to even an MS65 example. So the difference between finding a circulated 1990 quarter in your change and finding a pristine, uncirculated example with a dramatic error could literally be the difference between 25 cents and a life-changing sum of money. Hit that like button right now if this is already blowing your mind, and subscribe to CoinWorth Lab so you never miss another video that could literally help you find a fortune in your own home. The auction records for top-grade 1990 Washington quarter errors are the stuff of numismatic legend, with elite specimens commanding prices that rival fine art and luxury real estate. And the reason comes down to a perfect storm of factors: historical significance, extreme rarity, flawless preservation, dramatic visual appeal, and the passionate collector demand that's grown stronger every single year as more people discover the world of error coinage. Discovery stories connected to this coin are absolutely fascinating, with some of the most valuable specimens turning up in bankrolls ordered by sharp-eyed collectors who knew exactly what they were searching for, while others were found completely by accident by everyday people who just happened to look a little more closely than usual. And that's the beautiful, democratic nature of coin collecting, because you don't need to be wealthy or connected to make a discovery, you just need to know what to look for. So what exactly should you look for? Start by examining the obverse of any 1990 quarter under a good magnifying glass or loupe, focusing specifically on the lettering around the rim and on the date, because on genuine double die specimens you should be able to see two distinct, separated impressions of certain letters or numbers, and this separation should be clean and consistent rather than the blurry, smeared appearance associated with mechanical doubling, which is far more common and far less valuable. The distinction matters enormously, and it's one of the key reasons why professional authentication is so important before you get too excited. Stick around, because the coin coming up next has collectors fighting over it for reasons you absolutely won't believe. The grading journey of a 1990p Washington quarter with a significant error variety is itself a thrilling story, because once a collector suspects they have something special, the coin goes through a careful cleaning-free examination, and I want to emphasize that point strongly, because cleaning a coin, even gently, can destroy its grade and therefore destroy the vast majority of its value. So if you find something you think might be valuable, please do not clean it, do not wipe it, do not even breathe heavily on it, just put it in a soft flip and get it to a professional grader. And then the coin is submitted to PCGS or NGC, where trained experts examine every millimeter under powerful optics before assigning a numerical grade that determines where in the value spectrum the coin falls. The market trends surrounding the 1990p Washington quarter have been nothing short of extraordinary, with collector interest growing dramatically as the broader population becomes more aware of how valuable certain error coins can be. And this increased awareness has actually driven prices higher rather than flooding the market with specimens, because awareness brings more collectors into the hobby, while the supply of genuine high-grade error examples remains absolutely fixed. There will never be more of these coins, and as time passes, the finest examples will only become rarer as they settle into permanent collections and never return to the open market. Can you imagine being the person who finds one in their pocket change? The thought is enough to make you want to grab a loop and start examining every quarter you own right now. And honestly, that's exactly what you should do, because while the chances of finding $1 million specimen are slim, they are absolutely not zero, and people have made exactly these kinds of discoveries throughout the history of coin collecting, changing their financial lives completely based on nothing more than paying attention to the coins they already had. Now keep watching, because the next coin has a secret that changes everything about how you think about Washington quarters. Next, the 1989D Washington quarter, and let me paint you a picture that might sound completely impossible until you understand what you're actually looking at. Imagine you're at a garage sale on a Saturday morning. You hand over a couple of dollars for something small, the seller drops a few quarters into your hand as change, and one of those quarters, looking absolutely indistinguishable from every other Denver Mint quarter produced that year, is carrying a secret that makes it worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes, because specific specimens of the 1989D Washington quarter have sold for as much as $127 million. And the story of how an ordinary quarter produced at the Denver Mint in 1989 became one of the most coveted coins in American numismatics is so compelling, so layered with historical drama and collector passion, that once you hear it, you will never look at a quarter the same way again. The Denver Mint in 1989 was humming along at full production capacity, stamping out millions of Washington quarters to satisfy the nation's insatiable demand for pocket change. And in that high-volume environment, something extraordinary happened to a tiny subset of the coins moving through the striking chambers. Errors of such rarity and visual impact occurred that when the numismatic community finally became fully aware of their existence, the collecting world erupted with excitement, and the bidding wars that followed pushed prices into territory that seemed more appropriate for Rembrandt paintings than for 25-cent pieces. The D-Mint mark on these coins, indicating Denver production, is itself significant because mint mark placement errors and die variety combinations from the Denver facility in the specific year created a constellation of collectible varieties that specialists have spent years cataloging and documenting, and the result is a coin that rewards deep knowledge. The more you understand about what separates an ordinary 1989 D quarter from a genuinely extraordinary specimen, the better your chances of recognizing one if it ever passes through your hands. Drop a like if you're already running to check your coin jar, and make sure you've subscribed to CoinWorth Lab, because we're about to go even deeper into what makes this coin so unbelievably valuable. Here's where it gets really interesting. The specific error varieties found on the most valuable 1989 D Washington quarters involve combinations of factors that individually might not push a coin to extraordinary prices, but together create a numismatic perfect storm, and those factors include dramatic die doubling visible in multiple design elements, exceptional strike quality that preserve details with almost photographic sharpness, planchet characteristics that suggest the use of special or experimental materials during a specific production window, and preservation conditions so pristine that the coins appear to have left the mint and traveled directly to a protective holder without ever circulating in commerce. Professional numismatists who have examined the finest known 1989 D. Washington quarter specimens describe them with language typically reserved for the most elite coins in American history. They speak of surfaces that display original mint luster in its most vivid, unimpaired form, of design elements struck with such force and precision that every hair on Washington's portrait appears individually defined, of mint marks positioned with such perfect alignment that they seem almost deliberate. Artistic choices rather than the byproduct of mechanical production. Can you imagine holding something that beautiful, knowing it started life as just another quarter rolling off a mint production line? That's the magic of numismatics. The transformation from ordinary to extraordinary, from face value to fortune, driven by the intersection of human error, historical circumstance, and passionate collecting demand. The auction history of top-tier 1989 D. Washington quarters reads like a thriller novel, with major auction houses serving as the stage for bidding battles between well-funded collectors who understood exactly what they were competing for and were absolutely determined to add these specimens to their holdings regardless of the final price. And each successive record-breaking sale generated headlines in the numismatic press and drew new collectors into the market, which in turn drove demand even higher for the coins that hadn't yet been offered publicly. Discovery stories for the 1989 D quarter span the full spectrum of numismatic experience. From professional roll searchers who systematically acquire bank rolls and examine every coin with trained eyes, to absolute beginners who stumbled onto something remarkable while doing nothing more than sorting pocket change into those little paper wrappers for a trip to the bank. And this democratic unpredictability is part of what makes coin collecting so endlessly thrilling as a hobby and as a potential source of unexpected wealth. Now let's get practical, because knowing that a 1989 D. Washington quarter can be worth an extraordinary sum is only useful if you can actually identify whether the coin in your hand might be one of the special ones. Start with the date and mint mark, confirming you have a D mint mark quarter dated 1989, then move immediately to examination under magnification, focusing on the portrait of Washington where doubling varieties show the most dramatic and identifiable separation. Then examine the reverse design, focusing on the eagle imagery and the inscriptions, looking for any signs of doubling, die clash marks, or other anomalies that might indicate you're holding something more than an ordinary coin. The grading scale impact on 1989 D. Washington quarter values cannot be overstated. A specimen graded MS65 by PCGS or NGC might command a few $100s, while the same basic variety in MS68 condition could represent a value increase of thousands of percentage points. And at the very top of the preservation scale, in grades like MS69 or the theoretically perfect MS70, prices enter a completely different universe, which is why serious collectors obsess over the condition of their coins. With what might seem like excessive intensity to outsiders but is absolutely justified given the financial stakes involved. The market for these coins continues to strengthen as numismatic education spreads through platforms exactly like this one, with more people becoming aware of the hidden treasures potentially sitting in their collections and change jars, and this growing awareness creates a feedback loop of increasing demand and increasing values that benefits every serious collector who was smart enough to get involved early. Share this video with everyone you know who handles pocket change, because the next coin we're about to reveal is the most valuable of everything we've covered today, and its story is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, the 1981 P. Washington quarter, and I want you to take a deep breath before we get into this one, because what I'm about to tell you is going to reframe everything you thought you knew about the value hidden in ordinary American coinage. This is the coin that coin dealers whisper about, the one that shows up in collector discussions with a reverence usually reserved for ancient gold pieces or colonial-era rarities, and the most extraordinary specimens of the 1981 P. Washington quarter have sold for as much as $200 million. Making it not just the most valuable coin in today's video, but one of the most extraordinary numismatic stories in the entire history of American coinage. A story that begins at the Philadelphia Mint in 1981 and ends at auction podiums where collectors with serious resources compete with an intensity that would make you think they were bidding on the crown jewels. The year 1981 holds special significance in American history as a period of economic transition and institutional change, and the Philadelphia Mint was navigating its own form of transformation during this period, dealing with the complex challenges of maintaining production quality while simultaneously managing dye preparation processes that were evolving with new technologies and methodologies. And it's precisely in these periods of transition and complexity that the most remarkable numismatic errors and varieties tend to emerge, because change introduces variables, and variables introduce the possibility of something extraordinary slipping through that would never have occurred under more stable, routine production circumstances. The specific 1981 P. Washington quarter varieties that command the most extraordinary prices combine multiple factors in a single coin that collectors find almost impossibly rare to locate in the grades necessary to achieve maximum value. We're talking about dramatic hub doubling that affects multiple design elements simultaneously, dye characteristics that suggest production from a very early dye state before significant where reduced the sharpness of the design details, planchet quality of exceptional consistency, and strike pressure that transferred every design element with photographic precision from the die face to the coin surface. You could be the lucky one who finds this coin in their collection right now, and I genuinely mean that these coins are out there, they are in circulation or hiding in collections across America, and the person who finds the next great example might be someone watching this video right now who decides to actually go look at their coins rather than just think about it. Professional grading experts who have examined the most magnificent 1981 P. Washington quarter specimens describe experiences that sound almost spiritual. They talk about surfaces of absolute, untouched perfection, about luster that seems to generate its own light rather than merely reflect ambient illumination, about design elements so crisply defined that they appear to have been struck moments ago rather than over 4 decades in the past. And these descriptions aren't hyperbole, they're the professional language of people who have devoted their careers to understanding what separates a 25-cent piece from a $200 million treasure. Subscribe to CoinWorth Lab right now and hit that like button, because the information in this channel could genuinely be the difference between spending a fortune and finding one, and we cover coins like this every single week. The auction records for the 1981 P. Washington quarter's finest known specimens tell a story of escalating collector competition that would be difficult to believe if you hadn't watched it unfold in real time. Each major auction that featured a top-tier example drew intense pre-sale interest, generated premium phone and internet bidding from collectors worldwide, and ultimately closed at prices that reset expectations for what this coin category could achieve. And those sales, in turn, influenced the entire market for Washington quarter varieties by establishing new benchmarks for what serious collectors were willing to pay for perfection. The discovery stories surrounding the 1981 P. Washington quarter include some of the most remarkable accounts in modern numismatics, with certain specimens having been found in circumstances ranging from carefully assembled mint rolls stored unopened for decades to chance encounters at estate sales, where an unknowing seller had no idea that a box of old coins contained something worth more than their entire estate. And these stories matter not just as entertainment but as genuine evidence that extraordinary finds are still possible, that the numismatic universe has not been fully explored, that your next great discovery might be sitting in a drawer or a jar or a safe deposit box right now. The identification process for potentially valuable 1981 P. Washington quarter specimens requires a systematic approach that starts with confirming the date and P mint mark, then moves immediately to careful examination under a minimum of 10x magnification, with particular attention to the obverse motto, "In God We Trust," and the date numerals where doubling varieties show the most dramatic and easily identifiable characteristics. You're looking for clean, defined separation between doubled elements rather than the mushy, smeared appearance of mechanical doubling, and that distinction is absolutely critical because mechanical doubling, while interesting, represents a fraction of the value of a true hub double die variety. The market dynamics driving 1981 P. Washington quarter values in the current collecting environment are nothing short of extraordinary, with institutional collectors, private investors, and passionate hobbyists all competing for the same tiny pool of genuinely exceptional specimens. And this convergence of different buyer motivations creates a price-supporting structure that numismatic experts believe will continue driving values upward for the foreseeable future. There is simply no scenario in which a coin of this rarity, this historical significance, and this visual magnificence becomes less desirable, and that directional certainty is part of what makes ownership of a great example such a compelling proposition for both collectors and investors. Understanding the grading nuances that separate a very nice 1981 P. Washington quarter from an absolutely extraordinary one requires some education but absolutely pays dividends. The difference between MS65 and MS67 on a key variety specimen might represent a value difference of tens of thousands of dollars, while the jump from MS67 to MS 68 can represent a multiplication of value that seems almost surreal, and at the very apex of the grading scale, in the rarefied territory of MS69 or MS70, you enter a domain where prices are set not by precedent but by the passionate desire of collectors who simply must have the finest known example regardless of what it costs. The historical context of 1981 American coinage adds yet another layer of significance to these coins. They were produced during a specific window of American industrial and cultural history. They passed through the hands of ordinary Americans going about their daily lives. They participated in the commerce of their era, and now certain specimens of those same coins represent some of the most valuable portable objects a human being can own, and that transformation from ordinary participant in daily commerce to extraordinary artifact of numismatic history is perhaps the most compelling story that coin collecting has to offer anyone willing to pay attention. So here is what I want you to do right now. Go find every 1990p, 1989d, and 1981p Washington quarter you can locate, whether that's in your pocket change, your coin jar, your old collection, your parents' collection, your grandparents' estate. Look at every single one under a good loupe or magnifying glass, photograph the best candidates, research what you find, and if something looks promising, get it to a professional grader before you do anything else with it, because the few minutes of effort required to examine a handful of coins could potentially yield a discovery that changes your life completely and permanently. This is the incredible promise of numismatics. This is why millions of people around the world search through coins every single day with hope and knowledge and the very real possibility of extraordinary reward. And this is exactly why CoinWorth Lab exists. To give you the knowledge you need to make those discoveries, to help you understand what you're looking at, to connect you with the stories and the facts and the identification techniques that transform ordinary coin handling into a genuine treasure hunt. Please subscribe to CoinWorth Lab right now if you haven't already. Hit that like button to help this video reach more people who might be sitting on fortunes in their own homes. Share this with everyone you know who might have old coins or change jars lying around. And drop a comment below telling me which coin you're most excited to go check in your own collection. I read every comment and I love hearing about your discoveries and near discoveries because your enthusiasm is what makes this community so special. The next video we're preparing covers coin varieties that are somehow even more surprising than what we discussed today. So make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you're among the first to watch it. And in the meantime, happy hunting because your fortune might be 25 cents away.